Well, hello again and welcome to my documentaries. This particular report has got something like a dozen charts in it, so if you don't catch everything that I'm speaking, well, you can stop the film and go to the charts and make your own notes, do your own research. I'm going to start talking about the corrupt Bibles, and believe you me, they have been corrupted. I'm going to talk a little bit quickly on the redeemed people at the end of days. I'm going to talk about the law of the Jews, or the law of Israel, the ancient law. And I'm going to talk about the name of God. I'm going to talk about a lot of things when it comes to the secret societies, the Masons, the Illuminati, the cable of many secret societies, and how they have taken control over all of the religions in the world. Now, I'm not pro-Israel or anti-Israel. I'm not pro-Christian or anti-Christian. I'm an independent reporter. I don't belong to any church or any group or any synagogue, but I'm going to just give you the facts because I'm just an independent reporter. Sit back and have a look at this. Don't turn it off because you'll find there's a lot of information here that you are going to be very interested in. And I'm going to give you heaps of reference of the source material so that you can go in and do your own research. If there's things that you didn't know or that you found out from this report, then at least give me the comments underneath the film. Thank you. Now let's start with chart number 1. And they're itemised there, 1, 2 and 3. In item 1 up the top, at least 2 million Israel, nation of Israel, over a couple of thousand years cannot give up their idols and honour Yahweh, the living created God. Now, for this treachery, they were given over to their enemies, exiled, and they were rejected to be annihilated. And you'll see that in Ezekiel 20, verse 8. They would not accept correction nor heed Yahweh's numerous warnings. They wouldn't look. And is it the same today or not? People won't look to see what they've been following is a box of lies. The leaders of both the Jews and Christians under secret society's dogma also will not look to Yahweh's words for just the truth and give up their idol Jesus, or for the Jews, stop using Hashem, Talmud or oral laws and the lies, and millions have lost their lives under the curses to date. Item 2, a friend sent me a letter. He said, please consider God himself gives each of us a free choice as to what we decide to believe and not to believe. And he asked me to respect their wishes. Now, I firmly agree with that sentiment, but like them, I also believed the leaders and the text in the Bible all my life until I researched it with Hebrew friends to check out the original Hebrew text. I was shocked at the numerous fake inserts into both Hebrew, the original text, and differing English translations. Some examples included what I found is fake text inserted into Isaiah 9, Isaiah 7, Isaiah 53, and in particular, which shocked me, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. In other words, the Torah. And they included a false atonement, a day of atonement, Yom Kippur. You will see that as we go through the report. Item 3. Now, I asked a question to my friends, which God? What free choice are they referring to when the satanic forces of evil men have had their fingers in the Bible corruption way back in the beginning? And it was not put together until the 3rd century BC to the 3rd century AD. So what chance did they have to heed Yahweh when they've been unwittingly led by liars with a satanic agenda for 2,000 years to copy Egypt, copy Babylon, bring in the fake atonement for the Christ atonement for sins. Now what up to chart 2? Over 2,500 years, the Israel nation never repented. You'll not get a recording that they repented their evils or their wickedness. So the question is, how can a corrupt, wicked Israel, which is under the curses listed in the old book, to be annihilated? How can they get redeemed? And I put there, that's impossible. Yahweh caused them to be exiled as captives, 721 BC, 586 BC, and there's no Israel as a nation in existence that is decreed by Yahweh, the living created God, today. Item 1. Yahweh said he will choose a new people to be the Israel as a nation, described as in this report, as a second Exodus, and that's in Isaiah. In this section of Isaiah, Yahweh becomes the sole God of the whole world, and he said, I am the first and I am the last. Besides me, there is no God. That's in Isaiah 44. Now, this model of monotheism became the defining characteristic, 300 BC, of the post-exilic people and became the basis for Christianity and Islam. Item 2. Yahweh said, the promised land will be transformed into a paradise where the mountains will be lowered and the valleys raised to create a level road. In Isaiah 40, Yahweh God will make the wilderness a pool of water and the dry land springs of water. In Isaiah 41, Yahweh God said, I will make the wilderness a pool of water and the dry land springs of water. The new chosen redeemed Israel nation in this new Exodus, and they will not go out in great haste as they did at the first. In great haste, Yahweh will judge amongst the nations, and he will settle the arguments of many peoples. Now, this Isaiah chapter 2 statement is taken as an unofficial mission statement for the United Nations, and it's on a wall called the Isaiah Wall in the Ralph Bunche Park, which is right opposite the United Nations headquarters in New York. We're up to chart 3. Item 1. I asked the question, why has the so-called the critical name of Yahweh been removed out of all the scriptures 7,000 times, and it has been replaced with a pseudonym, a name called Hashem for the Jews, or it's been replaced with the Lord or Lord for the Christian people? Is this to suit their satanic plans, which is going to unfold in this report? Why has Yahweh announced and demanded we refer to him by his name, which is clear what his name is? And why do Jews claim that they don't know his name? Or they claim it's a sin to speak it? And you've got the reference material there. And item 2, do the Jews, the Bar Association, the Vatican, and the Illuminati Mason cartel, do they have anything in common with the ancient Pharisees? Jews today have total control over their people, invoking what is termed the halakha, and that is from their Talmud. Obviously, they chose not to recognize the supremacy of Yahweh's law, because from the Council of Jamnia, the Jews have also instituted the false Noahide laws, which, by the way, has been accepted by United Nations and the United States of America. The Noahide laws deny the Creator Yahweh's name, and they established Rabbi Akiva's oral law. That's out of the Talmud. They did that roughly 100 AD. Item 3, Yahweh said, They have abrogated my law and covenant. Now, I looked up the word abrogate, and it means annulled. So they've annulled in the original scripture over 2,500 years, replacing Yahweh with the Lord, has given the satanic plan Christian dogma to pave a way that leads to the fictional persona of Jesus, which is a copy over from the Egyptian religions. It was compiled 200 BC and 300 AD. Jews from the beginning inserted fake text into the scriptures in pursuit of this dogma. Isaiah 7, Isaiah 9, Isaiah 53. The Egypt religions, blood, sin, sacrifice rituals, the Trinity included, but that's not demanded by Yahweh. That's in Jeremiah 7, 30, 32, Hosea 6, Amos 5, and it says there, Yahweh speaking, said, did you offer me sacrifices and offerings in the wilderness for 40 years, O house of Israel? And don't forget, they were with Moses for 40 years, and it's in the Old Testament Torah that they claim Moses wrote it. But there's a question there that Yahweh says, I didn't ask for any sacrifices. So you're going to find out the Egyptian dogma copied from the false text that was inserted into the first 5 books, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, compiled in the 2nd century BC. And you get details there if you go to Jeremiah 14. Yahweh says in Ezekiel 7, the end has come. So when you look up the false Day of Atonement, or Yom Kippur, you will find that that is listed in the old book that was ordained by the Jews. It is not one of the 3 important times that was called by Yahweh, the Creator God. So let's go now to chart 4. And the question at the top, how do people heed Yahweh's instructions if their Bible has been corrupted? Item 1, 2, and 3. Item 1. Now, this is the Illuminati pure bloodline who believe that they have a divine right to rule the world. I'm going to give you a photograph of what that divine right represented. They came out of the genetic pool described in Genesis 6 as a mixture of fallen angels with the daughters of men. Yahweh demanded that Israel does not intermarry with these Anakim hybrids, but they did so. And there's a reference material there. They, over a period of at least 800 years, have been intermarrying with all of the nations around them. Item 2. The secret covenant of the Jewish sect society known as the Order of the Illuminati, issued under the supreme authority of the Jewish Bogra and sanctioned by the Jewish Rothschild dynasty in Europe and the Jewish Rockefeller dynasty in USA. Quote, we will keep them separated from the oneness by dogma and religion. We will always hide the divine truth from them, that we are all one. All religions are under our control. This they must never know. And of course that includes Judaism and Christianity. And this will explain, I've put there, that many rabbis and pastors are members of the Masons. Item 3. 590 BC, Yahweh their God said to the prophet Jeremiah, do not pray to me, I will not accept them, for I am going to annihilate them by famine, by sword, and by pestilence. And Yahweh said, they speak in my name, but I did not send them. Take no notice of them. And if you go into the internet and look up pogroms, you're going to see how many millions suffered. Of the entire 12 tribes of the original Israel, Yahweh caused enemies to take them. They were ultimately to be, Yahweh caused of their evil and treachery to Yahweh, they were going to be annihilated. And that has been happening since then, right up until today. We're up to chart 5. The Old Testament, or the Hebrew Bible, that had gained recognition as the official Bible around 90 in the Common Era. And it would receive official sanction in the Council of Jamnia. Now you can look all these up for your own research. The New Testament tradition, however, awaited Jerome's loving care and the Council of Nicaea, which is the Catholic Church. And that's about 323 to 325 of the Common Era. It took a few hundred years to finalize. Now, a fellow called Ezra, and you've got a book in the Bible called Ezra, the 5th century BCE, for the Sadducees and the Samaritans, the Great Assembly, or the Asher Knesset Haggadah, the men of this Great Assembly, according to Wikipedia, the Essenes, and is a separate Jewish sect. They wrote the Dead Sea Scrolls, hid them and sealed clay jars, and deposited them in containers in the caves, so they would survive the destruction of the Qumran when the Roman army attacked them. It's about 68 AD. Item 2. Even though Jews still claim today they are the chosen people of Yahweh God, the Tanakh confirms, the Tanakh is the Old Testament, the Tanakh confirms they were totally rejected by Yahweh for their evil, and he delivered them to the enemy, 721 BC and 586 BC. And don't forget, if you read the prophets, you'll find that they were killing their sons and daughters, sacrificing their children to demons throughout that 1,000-year period. But they have never repented to Yahweh, and they are definitely not his chosen today, you will see in this report. From about 1400 BC to 600 BC, nearly 1,000 years, they did this. 1, intermarried with all the nations. They shouldn't have done that. Adopted their idols and false worship, and they shouldn't have done that. Annulled, abrogated Yahweh's laws. Item 4, no Israel nation people repented and returned to Yahweh as his chosen, faithful people. In 5, King Solomon supported 700 alien wives and to sacrifice to demons. And you'll get that in the Tanakh on page 804 and 805, and you'll get it in page 841. Also referenced in 1 Kings 12. Item 6, commoners were made priests in Yahweh's temples, and that is dead against Yahweh's instructions. These people were worshipping idols, and they sacrificed their sons and daughters to demons right through to the Babylon exile in captivity 400 years later. So the question is, who put the story that Yahweh asked Abraham to kill and sacrifice his son Isaac, when Yahweh said the sacrifice of children never entered his mind? Now we're up to chart 6, and in this report you're going to realize that the group of people that have usurped the name and call themselves Israel and taken over the land and called it Israel in 1948. Let's look at some of the points about this. The United States of America did not accept Israel as a Jewish homeland state. That's in 1948. That the secret societies, they wanted that, and they tried to impose it. When the declaration to recognize Israel was brought to President Truman for his signature, It first read, the new Jewish state of Israel. Have a look at what President Truman did here. President Truman took his pen, he put a line through and crossed out the words New Jewish and then signed it. And item 2, now this meant that the United States of America did not recognize a new Jewish state, a religious and racial designation, but instead simply just another state. Now, after his retirement in 1956, President Truman confided in an interview his knowledge that American Jews were disloyal to the United States. He stated, quote, when a Jew born and living in America talks to his Jewish companions about our government, he means the government of Israel. Item 3. Now, the people who have usurped the name as Jews, these Jews, President said, I find are very selfish. And when they have power, physical or political, neither Hitler nor Stalin has anything on them for cruelty and mistreatment to the underdog. And that's in President Harry Truman's personal diary. But again, you might look at what's happening to the people in Gaza, where millions of women and children are annihilated and murdered. Item 4. Secret societies claim they have control over all religions, which I said before, including Judaism. Now, the Jews were actively involved in the secret society's establishment of Freemasonry in America. They were among those who established Masonry in 7 of the original 13 states. There have been at least 51 Jewish people, Jewish American Grand Masters of the secret societies that, remember, they control the United Nations, they control all governments, NATO, New World Order, CFR, Trilateral Commission, and of course, all of the media. All right, we're up to chart 7. Now, these people that have usurped the name Israel and the land, the secret societies, Jews and Christian religions, have hidden this vital information from the world. Let's look at some of it. Item 1. Edomites, who descended from Esau, later intermarried with a Turkic tribe to produce the Turco-Edomite mixture. They later became known as the Khazars, and they lived then in the Caucasus Mountains. Now, you can refer to the pictures on this on the web. Over 85% of the present people of Israel who have usurped both the name of Israel and occupied the land Israel are of this lineage. These originally Canaanite mixed Khazars with the Anakim giants, the Anakim giant genes, with a propensity for gigantism, superhuman strength, violence, and with special knowledge of the specific technologies such as metalwork, weaponry, making alchemy, and warring. Now, they converted to Judaism. It was an apostate, corrupt Judaism in the 8th century. At that time, there was a heavy Islamic expansion and pressure by the sword to convert or die. That's going to happen again today. Item 2. To avoid conversion, they strictly intermarried with other Jews, the women. Thus they were matriarchal, not patriarchal Jews by birth, but did not practice and adhere to the Old Testament religion and the instructions given by Yahweh God to the prophets. And they considered themselves as the elite nobles. Now, today, you've got the same thing happening. In the Jewish community, if a child is born of a woman, it's a Jew. But there's no reference that if a child is born of a man, it's a Jew. And yet, right throughout the old book, it was Yahweh's instructions that the male lineage was what you looked at. Now, the same today, the Jews claim a child as a new one if it's born from a mother. These people migrated across the Middle East, the Mediterranean, Western Europe, up via France and Iberia into the British Isles. That's about 3,500 BC. Today, they are the European royalty and aristocratic lines. They became known as the black nobility, the Guelphs. Get your head into researching that and ask it in Google and the web. Here, the bloodlines also connect to the Roman Piso family and the Roman Emperor Constantine the Great. That's in AD 325. They transferred the existing many pagan idol systems, the Day of Atonement included, and turned it into what you've got today as Judaism. They are responsible for inserting the blood sacrifice systems into the Torah. And I can rest assured, if you do your own research, you're going to realize all of the blood sacrifice rituals came out of either Egypt or Babylon. They were not instructed by Yahweh God to Moses or anybody. Item 3, the secret societies claim they have control over all the religions, as we said before. Jews were actively involved in the secret societies that established America, which I've given to you before. So I'll give you a chance to look at all the resources, have a look, do your own research, and you're going to find out a lot more of the truth. Here we are, chart 8. Again, you've got to realize that this false Day of Atonement that's been inserted in their Torah, that is a blood sin sacrifice. And they claim, of course, that they told Moses about that. When you've already read in this report that Moses was not asked for any blood sacrifices in the whole 40 years of bringing the people out of Egypt. Okay, now Rabbi Akiva, he was a Pharisee, and you've got the Hebrew terminology there. He was instrumental in drawing up the canon of the Tanakh, the Jewish Bible. The Torah was rewritten to include the religious rituals from Egypt and Babylon that they had been adhering to for nearly 1,000 years. That practiced daily blood sin sacrifice in Egypt. And to keep reference to the philosophical and ethical doctrines, Rabbi Akiva perceived in them indications of many important, and here it is, ceremonial sacrificial laws, legal status, and ethical teaching that needed to be preserved. Thus, the Day of Atonement was inserted into the Torah. This was not an appointed time. It was not a day ordained by Yahweh, the Creator God, but it was ordained by the Jews when the current Torah was compiled in the Jewish Bible by the Great Assembly. This is approximately 150 CE. And they say about Rabbi Akiva, admirable as is the systemization of the Halakha, Jewish law, by Rabbi Akiva, his hermeneutics and halakhic exegesis, which form the foundation of the Talmudic learning, surpassed it. And Rabbi Akiva made the accumulated treasure of the oral law. Ultimately, though, he was, and all the elders were skinned alive and executed at the stake. Now realize something there, of course. If he was responsible for putting that in, obviously he was from this date the Jews were not the chosen people of Israel and under Yahweh's protection, but they still claim they are the chosen people of Israel. They're not according to the old book. Israel was founded by and has always been controlled by the Rothschilds and the rest of the elite. The Jewish homeland scam is just a smokescreen, and the Jewish people are pawns in their game. Rothschild founded and funded the Zionist movement to further a New World Order agenda. And if you look up the Illuminati and Theodore Hearst, you'll get more information. But from the Freemasonry, in fact, teaches that Solomon was the Messiah, and that is false teaching. Now we're up to chart 9. And by the way, it's taken us about 40 minutes to get to this point. Item 1. Although they were repeatedly warned by the prophets, warned by Yahweh not to, the Israelites for the first 1,000 years, right through to 590 BC, they held pagan worship, adopting the blood-sin sacrifices of all the nations around them, including killing their sons and daughters. But rather than chastise them, this is what their own people, this is Maimonides, a medieval Talmud, oral law Jewish sage. This is what he said. But the custom which was in those days general among men, and the general mode of worship, in which the Israelites, talking about his own people, were brought up, considered in sacrificing animals, it was in accordance with this wisdom in the plan of God. Which God? Not Yahweh. That God did not command us to give up and to discontinue all these manners of service, for to obey such a commandment would have been contrary to the nature of man, who generally cleaves to that to which he is used to. It would have been too much to have expected, now get this point, to expect that the Israelites to leap from pagan worship to prayer. You'll get that reference in the Guide for the Perplexed, written by a Jewish sage. Item 2. Now it also says that Yahweh God combined with pagan god symbols, was combined by Israel, the Israelite people, which is jewel worship. And Yahweh said, have no other gods before me. This was an abomination to Yahweh. But the Christian dogma is the same today, because they've covered it using the Day of Atonement. And they will say, worshipping Jesus and the Father, applying the Jesus' blood for the atonement of the sins of man, that is a lie. That is falsehood. And that is abhorrence of the practice of child sacrifice. That is emphasized in Jeremiah 7, 30-32, but in Ezekiel and in Jeremiah, there are several places where it tells you that it was absolutely an abomination to Yahweh, the Creator God. And yet you've got that notation there from one of their own Jewish sages in item 1. Now, look, there is mentioned in the old book many times the day of Yahweh's wrath, day of his vengeance, day of his judgment. I've listed there quite a few of the items with the reference source material, so that you can read that in your own time and realize there's a lot of important things that are going to happen. You mightn't believe in God. You might have a different religion that teaches you different things. But that's what the old book says, and that's what Yahweh, the Creator God, says he will cause to happen. And don't forget, it is by his hand that these things are caused to happen. So I'll let you read that in your own time. Now, it's important that you do understand what the old book says is going to happen at the end of days. I personally believe that we've entered into a period of time which are the end of days. There's a couple of things on here that shocked me when I Googled it on the web to find out what is happening. Yahweh says he will dry up the Nile, the Jordan, and the Euphrates River. Google it, you'll get the shock of your life. Yahweh said he'll dry up the Dead Sea, which is referred to as Nimrim. Google it. Again, you're going to find that it is drying up. Yahweh said he's going to destroy the fish and the birds. And there's millions of fish dropping out, millions of birds dropping out of the sky, and millions of fish, tons of fish, dying belly up all over the ocean. Now, realize if Yahweh said he's going to do that, he doesn't come out of the sky with a machine gun. He doesn't come out and suck all the water out. But he does cause the minds of evil people to fulfill his plans. Now, go through that in your own time, and you're going to realize that also it says Jerusalem will be totally destroyed. Now, I know that all the commentaries and all of the Bibles will tell you that that happened in 70 AD with Titus coming down with the Roman Empire. Sorry, this is total destruction. It says it will be reduced to a heap of rubble. But it also tells you that Yahweh, the Creator God, is going to make a new earth and new heavens. It also tells you that those people who will be the redeemed, a group of people that have been chosen from all over the world by Yahweh, they will be those people that will redeem and retain his name, the name Israel. Of course, all of the secret societies who think that they are not going to be touched, they are also going to be destroyed. And you've got the reference material there. All right, I'll leave that with you for a couple of moments and you can read it in your own time. Now, in this chart, section 3, it's referring to a new group of people which will be referred to as Israel again. But they're chosen by Yahweh. And if you read all the text there, you're going to find that they're chosen from all the nations and all over the entire world. So there's absolutely no reference there that he will retain and keep any people that have usurped the name Israel, who've given themselves the name Israel, who've taken over the land and called it Israel in 1948. When you read all of the reference material, the source there that I've put in front of your eyes, you will realize that there will be a group of people that Yahweh calls the Israel people. And when you read that, you're going to find that what they are doing and where they're coming from is nothing to do with the Israel today. You see, just because you've got a group of people that say to you they are Israel, that does not mean that they are the Israel under the hand of Yahweh. Already you've seen in this report that the whole minyan, the elders, back there in the group of the Pharisees, they were all taken out and executed at the stake by the Roman people. So were they Israel under the protection of Yahweh? I don't think so, because they were all annihilated then. And Yahweh makes it quite clear throughout the earth where he has dispersed them, he will bring famine on them, pestilence on them, and the sword after them. And when you do your research, you're going to find out that that has been happening for 2,500 years. And it will continue to happen until his day of judgment, his day of wrath, his day that he calls the day of Yahweh. In your books, it will be referred to as the day of the Lord. Now, I'll leave this chart there for a few moments so that you can read the items yourself. It's an Egypt history chart with approximate dates going back to 3500 BC, before the flood. And it'll tell you there where the flood is, and it'll bring you all the way through up to the Common Era, or AD, and give you an idea of what happened throughout that period of time. In the pre-flood period, the BC period, and the AD, or CE era. Now, I've given you the rundown on the secret societies in this documentary, but I've also shown to you that they do have control over all of the governments in the world. They have control over the military with NATO and the UN, and they have, of course, complete control not only over the secret societies, but they are the secret societies. Now, you're looking at the hand signal that they will use in a lot of their photographs, and you'll see that. This is the hand signal of the Illuminati and secret societies and Masons, showing the world who they are, and they believe in their heart that they have the right to rule the world. And they believe they will also travel to the stars. If you Google it, go into the internet and have a look at what they believe and what they claim they are, you will get a shock. But many Christians and Jewish leaders, they display this hand signal in numerous of the old photographs. Now, there's going to be a little slip here, a preview of another fellow called Trey Smith. And you'll just see a couple of snippets here, but that's not the rest on this film. You will be able to get that on the internet. Now, you've seen this chart before, but I'll leave it there for a couple of moments. This is going to give you all of the names of all of the leaders and the minion of the rabbis that were taken out. And with Rabbi Akiva, he was skinned alive, and the rest of them, they were burned at the stake. Now, if you want to, if you're interested in that, I'll leave that there for a moment, stop the film, and you can take all of their names. Now, this chart and the next chart, I'll cover them more in the next report. But just quickly, 1, 2, 3, and 4 items. The Sanhedrin traces its origins to the Council of Elders established under the Persian rule. We're talking 333 BC. That was the highest Jewish legal and religious body. Pharisee leaders of the time, they were the noted teachers of the Talmud. Item 2. Ptolemy's successors were in turn supplanted by the Seleucids, and in 175 BC, Antiochus IV seized the power. Now, he launched a campaign to crush Judaism. The violation of the Second Temple, which had been built, and that's 520 BC, provoked the Jewish rebellion. You can read that yourself. Item 3. Yahweh rejects Israel and Judah for their evil and wickedness, as they never repented, and they were then placed under his curses. Now, these are the words of Yahweh, the living creator God. He says, "Do not pray to me. I will not accept them, for I am going to annihilate them by famine, by sword, and by pestilence." Jeremiah 14. Yahweh also said in Jeremiah 29, they speak in my name, but I did not send them. Take no notice of them. Now down the bottom in item 4, but the Jews still think they are the chosen people under the protection of Yahweh. But items 1, 2, and 3 on this chart show they were not the chosen people anymore, and they're still not. And they refuse to heed the numerous instructions and warnings given to them by the prophets. Now, there is a myth here, because over the last few hundred years, the Jews have been trying desperately with the secret societies to convince the world that they're still the chosen people, but they're not. The Jews that have taken over the country and call it Israel are fake Jews. You've got all those details in this report. And again, I'll just put there as the Sanhedrin, which is a Jewish legal and religious body of the Pharisees. They were the Talmud teachers, oral law teachers, and Noahide laws. Now, all of this was an abomination to Yahweh. Item 2, Yahweh said, pay no heed to the rabbis who prophesy to you. They are deluding you. They speak the visions of their own heart, not of the mouth of Yahweh. And that's Jeremiah 23:13 on. In item 3 there, Jeremiah 18, Yahweh says, can I not do to you, house of Israel, what the potter does to remodel a vessel, what the potter does to the clay? Yahweh can do to Israel. In other words, he's giving them the opportunity to repent, listen to his prophets, and do what he wants them to do. But Yahweh's words here, one moment I may speak concerning a nation or a kingdom to destroy, to demolish, or annihilate it. But if a nation repents of the evil, then I relent of the evil decree that I had planned to carry out against it. Or one moment I may speak concerning a nation or a kingdom to build and establish it. But Israel did not repent. That's in Jeremiah 18. Item 4, the words of Yahweh were read to the king. This is a bit of history about it. The king took the scroll, threw it in the fire, and burnt it. That's in Jeremiah 36. There wasn't any Judaism religion in the BC ages, or as you've seen in this documentary. Not one man threw away their idols. And that's biblical proof in Ezekiel 20:8-12. But the Jews still think they are the chosen people. And the United Secret Societies have pushed this barrow for hundreds of years. They still think they got the protection of Yahweh, but here, items 1, 2, 3, and 4 show they were not the chosen people anymore. And they're still not the chosen people. So they're fake Jews in Israel.
Than what meets the eye. Let me ask you this. If your consciousness is separate from your physical body, and your physical body dies, then that would have to mean that you still exist, right? Let that one sink in a minute. At the inception of the book of Genesis, it starts with a fascinating